Yeah, we definitely think that they should hike this week. It's priced in by markets, and more importantly, the macroeconomic data really supports it. We don't have essentially 0% inflation like you just heard. We've got 2% inflation, we've got a tight labor market, we've got wages pushing higher, and all things point towards us having a little bit of stronger inflation, so they should be removing some of that excessive accommodation.
Hey, Professor, if the Fed does go ahead with the hike, as Luke and many on Wall Street expect this week, besides using the bully pulpit of Twitter for bashing the move, what else can he do?
Well, President Trump, Twitter is not an ineffective mechanism for him in his mind, but in fact, this is probably cutting against him. It's fairly stupid for him to engage in a public fight with the Fed for exactly the reason that Peter Navarro mentioned, which is it can box the Fed into a corner. If at the margin the data is pointing in both directions, and the Fed does have an institutional credibility pull to say, all right, we've got to assert ourselves, even if we're not quite sure which direction we should be going. And so at the margin, they could point toward raising rates, exactly the opposite of what President Trump would want.
Peter, if this clash really escalated, how easy would it be for the president to remove the Fed chair?
The short answer is we don't know, and we're extremely unlikely to find out. The longer answer is that a lot of presidents have been pretty angry at their Fed chairs in pretty similar circumstances to what we're seeing today. And one, President Truman, in the 1950s, even succeeded at essentially firing his Fed chair. But the law is very murky. President Trump probably could remove Jerome Powell as Fed chair, but not as a Fed governor. And his attempt to do so, even though it's very unlikely to ever get before the courts, would just send the Fed and the economy into disarray. People wouldn't really know where to look for leadership at the Fed. So that would be an unmitigated disaster.